All right, let's get started. I tend to be loud, so I'm going to close the door just in case. So, for those of you who doesn't know me, I'm David Dang, and we're going to talk about basically mobile automations. It's basically, you know, it's a project that I worked on, and it was pretty cool, right? So I just kind of want to share the information of how we got to where we get, and then I have a demo if it runs. You know how it is, right? Murphy's Law. Whenever you do a demo, it doesn't run correctly, right? So luckily I did run it a bunch of times yesterday, so I have video. We can always go to the video. All right. Little bit background about myself. I started out as a developer way back. I'm going to age myself. All right, in the COBOL DB2 CICS day. Okay. He's like, what are you talking about, right? He heard the term COBOL, right? But all the other stuff. Green screen, right? I started out then, and I was a developer for about 3 years, and then went into QA, and did manual QA, and then did automation pretty extensively. And you know, back in the day, it was Windrunner. I don't know if you remember those terms, okay? Windrunner days. I was certified in Mercury. All right, start teaching and start doing a lot of architect work. On the mobile side, I started doing mobile testing about 6 years ago, which was, you know, in mobile term, 6 years means you are really, really old, right? You know what I mean? It's funny because whenever I talk about mobile, I remember when I first started, you know, speaking on mobile, and I will ask the people, how many people have smartphone, right? And you know, half the room would raise their hand, right? Now the question I ask is, how many people still have flip phone? Right? I mean, and trust me, the last conference, no one had flip phone. It went from like 5, 3, 1, 0, right? Because it's actually harder to get a flip phone now than to get a smartphone, right? You can get a smartphone for free pretty easily. So that's kind of my background a little bit. I'm going to tell you a lot of stories usually with my talk. So this is me. Now, the only thing I have to say is, you know, this is a case study using Perfecto Mobile. Perfecto Mobile is a cloud-based mobile solution. So what they do is, you know how instead of having real device in hand, right? What they do is they have real device, but it's on the cloud. Now the benefit of that is, of course, if you have multiple locations, right? You don't have to duplicate your so-called phone portfolio, right? So a lot of companies would use the service if they say, well, we've got a testing team in India, right? We have a team in West Coast, we have a team in East Coast, all that stuff. But reality is it's real device. Now, whatever I'm telling you on this case study here does also apply to testing on real device that are connected to your PC using Appium. You guys know Appium? Kind of, sort of? How many people want me to kind of go over what Appium is? Okay? Appium, so have you guys heard of Selenium? Mm-hmm. Right? Everybody heard of Selenium now, right? Everybody have it on their resume. I'm Selenium, right? But what kind of usage, right? So Selenium is an open source, okay, automation framework, all right? I don't know if you know where the name Selenium came from. You guys know why the name Selenium came from? You do, right? It's actually pretty cool. So for those of you who doesn't, right? Back in the day, the biggest automation tools was created by a company called Mercury Interactive. Okay, they created Windrunner, QTP, now you know all the other stuff, right? Before they were sold to HP, right? They were Mercury Interactive. There was a bunch of groups that say, I really don't like it because it's really expensive, it's kind of clunky, right? So they went out and created an open source framework called Selenium, right? And the reason they named it Selenium is Selenium kill mercury poisoning. Okay? So they name it so that it's just a little dig into, okay? Now Selenium is open source. Now the only thing about Selenium is it only drives browser. That's the definition. If you look at Selenium automation, right, it will say, we drive browser, all right? Now that being said, that means it doesn't work with other technologies, like mobile, client servers, okay? All right? So from Selenium, there's been so-called branching of that code base. And one of the branching is called Appium. Okay? Appium allows you to connect to a real device via USB, okay? Or actually the new version of Appium allows you to connect to Bluetooth. And you can drive your device, okay, using that. Okay? Now this case study used Perfecto because the client bought Perfecto. All right? But everything I'm showing you here, there's nothing wrong with you being able to mimic this thing using Appium. Does that make sense? Because Perfecto is pretty expensive. All right? But they have a lot of good features too. But just want to have that points out. So we're going to talk a little bit about the case study. All right? The background of it, what they want us to do. Okay? How did we select the tools that we select? Right? How did we come up with an implementation plan, and what was the outcome of it, right? And then I'm also have a small demo. Now, of course, I can't demo you what I've done for that company because I signed enough things that all right. So what I did is I created a little snippet of code. Hopefully it runs, like I said, right? Murphy's Law, right? And kind of show you how we integrated with Jenkins and run it through Jenkins and stuff like that. All right, make sense? Good. And again, since this is those won't stop me anytime. Say, David, you're out of your mind, right? It does not work, all right? We can kind of talk about what took place and all that stuff. All right, good. All right. So more and more companies are adopting continuous integration, and for that matter, DevOps. Now, I know that in IT we have a lot of lingo, right? Right now, the big lingo is CI/CD. Are you doing CI/CD? Okay? Now, CI/CD should stand for continuous integration, continuous delivery. Some people use it as continuous deployment. Big difference. Okay? So continuous integration is whenever I check in code, there's an automated mechanism in place to automatically build code. Right? In the old days, we would have what we call schedule build. Have you heard of that? Well, we build once every 3 months, right? On a Tuesday. Okay? And then, of course, what happened? Developer put something in, it breaks. Developer come back and say, I have no idea what I put in. Right? So even with good version control and stuff like that, they put in so much code in that 3 months that it takes them a while to backtrack, right? So I went to the first year continuous integration conference. I have a t-shirt that showed that. 2007, about 10 years ago, right? And they had a little get-together, literally, 10 people shows up, all right? That was how new it was, right? And the idea behind continuous integration is this. Why are we not building code as we check in code? Why are we waiting 3 months from now, right? Because if I'm a developer and I check in code, and it breaks, I know exactly what I did, right? And I can actually say, whoa, my bad, right? I'm going to revert it, figure out what's wrong before checking it back in. The problem with continuous integration is, from a QA and testing perspective, it's pretty terrible, okay? So that's continuous integration, right? Continuous deployment is basically every time you check in code, not only are you building the code, but you are deploying it to a server somewhere. Okay? That's continuous deployment. And then there's continuous delivery. All right? Continuous delivery is this. Not only do you build the code, you deploy it, but you put it in production. Okay? Think about that, right? If you can get to CD, right, true CD, right, you are doing, there's really no manual testing when you get to true CD, right? Now, how does this all move into this thing called the new buzzword is DevOps, right? Oh, we're doing DevOps. Everybody's saying we're doing DevOps, right? DevOps is just a term. Development and operation, right? It's like, what's that? Ben Affleck and J-Lo, right? Remember that? They add the two names together? That's all. DevOps means many things to many companies, all right? But the idea behind DevOps is development and operations should work really close together, okay? So that a lot of the infrastructure side will not impact, right? So things that can impact infrastructure. Let's say I have a database, right? And I'm upgrading that database. That's an infrastructure item, right? Developer doesn't know about that. It breaks the code. You see what I'm saying? We're introducing defect into it, right? Now, companies have gone to more extreme with DevOps, right? They want to be able to automate that whole process of setting up environment, right? So if you're in DevOps now, you hear a lot of container, right? We set up container, right? All right? Because what it is they automate the process of actually spinning up environment, taking down environment, right? Refreshing data, all that stuff, right? They're doing it dynamically. In the old days, operation would say, give me 5 months. I'm going to go buy some server. I'm going to do this. I'm going to config this. And you're going to have a QA environment. Okay? Now it's not like that anymore, right? Especially with AWS, Amazon, right? Web service. You guys heard of that, right? Elastic computing, right? You heard of those terms? All this is basically, there's no longer, right, physical server on your company anymore, right? You're buying storage, right? So I hate to say this, but we're going back to almost the idea of mainframe again. All right, so it's coming kind of full circle, but with a much better interface, right? But that's what we're doing now, right? We're renting space and stuff like that, right? So DevOps, in that regard, it's some companies say, well, I'm CI/CD, or not in CI/CD, I'm CI, I'm DevOps. Reality is, well, if all you have to do is work with the operation person, and you can call yourself DevOps, all right? Because that's all it is, right? Communication. But again, there's a lot, right? It's just like, remember about 7 years ago, right? Everybody say, we're agile. Or even now, we're agile, right? And then when you look at the process, what happened? It's a miniature waterfall, scrumafall, all right? You hear that term, scrumafall, right? You hear the term of fragile? We're doing fragile, we're not doing agile, right? All right? And the reason is, again, it's a term, right? And it depends on what you want to do, all right? So companies are moving more and more into it, and they need better ways for QA process to keep up, right? Because think about it, if I'm building code and I'm deploying, and I'm in the middle of testing, right? And the code gets deployed, what happened? It invalidates all my testing, right? As a good tester, I can't just say, well, I think it should work, right? You want to go back and validate some of that stuff, okay? So this is kind of the case study of what this company wants and how we were able to kind of give it to them. So a little bit of background, is an insurance company, very big, right? They are getting bigger and bigger in digital channel. That's another, if you want to know buzzword, the next buzzword is IoT. Ooh, we're doing IoT, okay? It stands for Internet of Things, okay? What does that mean, right? Is anything Internet of Things, right? Internet of Things is basically networking everything together, right? Through a network. It could be the internet, or it could be your private network that acts like, the internet, right? So what it is think about it, like Time Warner, right? Now you can integrate your alarm system, right, with an app, right, that you can turn on and off your alarm, right? That's Internet of Things, okay? So I just came back about a month ago from Mobile Dev and Test and IoT conference, right? And at first I was like, ooh, IoT, that's scary, right? And then one of the guys in the class, he's like, well, anything connected to a network is IoT. Got it. All right? It's just a cool name for it now, right? But that's the same thing, right? So a lot of companies moving into digital channel. Digital channel is basically web, mobile, and wearable, right? So it's basically, mobile devices, website, and, right, wearable watches or whatever, wearable, right? They have a agile development methodology, not as mature, okay? So they are running agile, they're running 3-week sprint, okay? However, they don't have all the component of it, right? It's still somewhat waterfallish, right? Development use Jenkins for CI, that's very common now, okay? TeamCity is another one, some company use, all right? Bamboo is another one, okay? but it's basically a build, right? A build tool, all right? They want open source toolset for test automation, okay? And this is actually a big change in the marketplace, okay? About 6 years ago, I told you I have a lot of story, right? I went to a company, all right? And they were mid-sized company, they were all web-based, right? And I went and did a tool evaluation and came back and recommended at the time Selenium 2.0 or Selenium WebDriver, as we know it now, okay, just came out, right, about 6 years. Before that was RC, was pretty bad, okay? So I'm like, hey, you know, you guys should use, right? And in the meeting, there were the CFO of that company was in the meeting, right? And so, you know, I'm like, blah, 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 it's free, right? And he shook his head, right? Right? And again, they're a smaller company, but they deal with very sensitive information, very similar to credit card information, okay? And he shook his head, he's like, right? And I'm like, okay. I'm like, you know, I thought, right, I'm going to present them, you know, with an open source tool. He will be super happy, right? Because he doesn't have to spend, you know, quite a bit of money buying the tools, right? And he's like, we can't use it. And I'm like, you mind telling me why, right? And he's like, I have no one to sue. If it doesn't work correctly, right, or somehow it have a breaches to security, any of that stuff, he doesn't have anyone to sue. So we couldn't recommend it. Now, luckily, the market had really moved away from that mentality. And even an insurance company, okay, even an insurance company are open up to open source, okay? All right, self-automated unit testing paired with Jenkins. So there were some, again, a lot of companies say they do unit testing, it's hard to really tell how well they do it, all right? What they want, here's the fun part. Now, how many people know responsive design website? You know what that means? All right, let me kind of tell you what response, again, another buzzword. If anything else, for this presentation, you will get a lot of buzzword that you can put on your resume to make yourself like super intelligent, all right? All right. Responsive design came out. So, in the beginning of day of mobile, right? In the beginning of day of mobile, company will say, well, I have a website. But when I look at the website on my little iPhone 3GS or 3G, it's too small. I can't see anything. So companies start developing what they call mobile version of their website, right? So when you type in, back in the day, when you type in www.ebay.com, it will redirect you to m.ebay.com, the mobile version. And some of the websites still do that, all right? So what they do is they have a mobile version and they have a desktop version. Does that make sense? Okay? Then company realized, this sucks. I got two code base. The content is almost the same, right? But it's two unique code base. That means, guess what? Two development team, two QA team, right? Two configuration team to promote it, right? And all that stuff, right? Two support team, all right? And someone said, that is not smart. So what they did is they come up with this concept called responsive design, all right? Which is basically having the one website, but self-recognizing to the screen resolution and optimize it based on that. So most of the website you go to now, it won't redirect you to M anymore. It's still, www.ebay.com, right? But what it is like, ooh, this screen's smaller. What content can I take out? What content can I include, right? So what you see a lot is what we call the hamburger menu. Have you ever heard that term? Okay? Which is basically that three line. Instead of a full website where you have the top navigation, you got a hamburger menu. Okay? That's kind of a way you can tell if it's responsive or not. From an automation standpoint, it's very important for us to know if it's responsive or not, because the element identifier or the object identifier is exactly the same between desktop and mobile, which means I can try to write one script that will run on both desktop and mobile. Think about that. Ooh, I don't have to duplicate my automation. Does that make sense? All right. So with this company, their website was responsive. So they want the ability to write one script that they can run on mobile device or desktop. Okay, which was a challenge. All right. They want a subset of the automation to be smoke tests. Okay, which means they want the ability to integrate with their current build process. Okay, where after the build is done, it will trigger the automation. Okay, and it will write back to Jenkins if it passed or failed. Now, easier said than done, because for us to run against the website, what we have to do, we have to deploy it first to a QA environment. You see what I'm saying? So we actually have to write some custom script, right, to actually take the WAR file and deploy it to the web server, okay, and make sure that is successful. The service you have to stop the service and stop the service, you know what I'm talking about, right, before my automation gets kicked off, all right? They want timely reporting for go and no go. That's a very important aspect. They want to be able to say, look at Jenkins, right, dashboard, and say, nope, this bill is no good, okay, this bill is good. All right, so what that means is when we build the automation, we actually have to build some reporting aspect into it. Okay? Of course, they want low maintenance. Okay? They want the world, trust me on this one. Okay? They want the world, right? And they want the automated suite to handle events and dynamic web content. All right? Not easy thing to do from an automation standpoint. All right? So what we had to do is, now not only that, you have to understand web, the hamburger menu show up differently than desktop, of course, right? So we have to come up with a way to figure out how to navigate through those websites, right, with those slight differences. Okay? So fun stuff. Let's just, and I gained a lot of gray hair from this project. That's why I want to present it to you guys. All right? And so the first thing we did was, we're like, all right, what are we going to do here? What are we going to do here? All right? So, of course, you know, with open source, now, so how many people have worked with like a QTP or Windrunner or stuff like that before? You guys have, right? One of the biggest differences is when you buy an automation tools, okay, they package all this stuff together, okay? Your reporting is already there, right? Your object recognition is already there, right? All this thing they built for you already. With open source, you gotta dig and find what you can use. Some worked, some doesn't work, okay? So we went out there, and again, if you wanna know, there's a really good website called opensource.com/automation tools. Right now, there's about 136 open source automation tools out there, okay? So think about that, right? Think about how many tools you have out there. But what we actually decided on was, all right, we're going to use Eclipse as our IDE. Now, I know we have a lot of more now, right? We have IntelliJ, right? We have NetBean, we have all that stuff. But we went with Eclipse, okay, just for the fact. And we went with Java, which is important because Selenium allows you to work with multiple languages, right? Selenium will allow you to work with Python, right? C#, sorry, okay? Work with, what else? Ruby, okay? So we went with Java. Now, why did we went with Java, okay? Very simple answer. It has the biggest community, okay? Because if you have an open source, all right, and you decide to say, I want to use Selenium with PHP, and you say, I don't know how to do this, right? And you go to Stack Overflow, right, and search, you might not get an answer. Make sense? If I do Java, somebody's already wrote some code that I can cut and paste. Okay? So we went with Java. Okay? So from an open source standpoint, you also want to make sure you look at the community. I told you I love to tell you a story, right? About 6-7 years ago, there was a tool that was up and coming, a framework that's up and coming called Ruby Water. Have you ever heard of that? Ruby Water, right? I thought it was the next best thing, right? So I learned it. I spent a year learning Ruby Water. I started teaching Ruby Water. I started automating project on Ruby Water, and Ruby Water never got adapted by much people. So I wasted a year. That's open source. Okay? So it's hard to say what is the next wave, right, that you want to kind of jump on. Okay? However, that being said, Selenium is not going to go away anytime soon. And the reason for that is Fortune 1000 company are adapting it. Not only that, W3C adapted as an official framework. You see what I'm saying? So I don't think Selenium is going to go away anytime soon. There might be better one that might kind of plug on top of it, all right? But I don't think the core code is going to go away. Does that make sense? So we went with Java and Selenium WebDriver, all right? We went with TestNG also. Now, you guys know what TestNG is? And again, I'm going to explain a lot more to this, right? I'm just going to give you a little bit overview. TestNG stands for Test Next Generation, right? All it is what we call a test management framework, okay? Now, you can use JUnit as your test management framework. The problem with JUnit is it doesn't allow you to run in parallel or concurrency. TestNG, because it's next generation, right, it allows you to run multi-threaded, which is really important in automation. Okay, we use Maven. Okay, actually we use ReportNG. Remember I told you reporting was very important to them because they need to make go and no-go decision. So we actually use ReportNG, right, to actually report out. And there's a nice thing about ReportNG is it have a plug-in to Jenkins, so that Jenkins will display this pretty nice, not crazy nice, pretty nice report of telling you what passed, what failed. Okay? Maven, all right, Maven is awesome. And I'm not a Maven expert by any stretch of, I use about 10% of Maven. Okay? Now the problem with open source is this. You have a lot of version. All right? So you have all this stuff. TestNG have its own version, right? ReportNG have its own version. Selenium WebDriver have its own version, right? Now, if I want to basically make my script portable, if I decide to create my script on my PC and run it in your PC, I cannot do that without downloading all these packages, okay? In Java, with packages, in Ruby, with all the gems, right? I could not do that, okay? So if I want to have portability and be able to have version that is correct, right? I have to manually manage that, and that's terrible. Do not do that. Maven help you manage that, all right? If you integrate with a Maven project and tell it what is the dependency on this project, it will go and search its repository and pull that information in for you automatically. So if I want to decide to run on somebody else's PC, all I have to do is export the project, a Maven project, okay, and send it to them, right? They have Maven. The first time you do a clean, you clean out the project first, and then you build the project, which will pull in all the dependency for you automatically. And you don't have too much work to do. So Maven is actually very important. All right. Selenium WebDriver, Perfecto Mobile, I kind of talked to you a little bit about that. And for version control, we use SVN. Now there's a lot out there now, all right? I mean, Get is one that tons of people use, all right? Now, just to let you know, Get also has many, many versions, just to let you know, okay? So when people say, I'm using Get, I'm like, okay, what Get? GitLab? Get help? Which Get are you using, right? Because there's different idea behind that, right? Not only that, Get now also have the build tools now. You know that? All right? Get have its own build tool, so you don't have to have Jenkins anymore. You can actually download Get build tool. It's crazy. The market is moving so fast, I'm getting old trying to catch up, basically. All right? All right, so implementing plan. What we have to do, we kind of have to know the role and responsibility. So we actually put a team together. All right? We put a team of 5 people together. Okay? Because they want it now, of course. You know, oh, we heard about this awesome thing you can do, but we want it now. All right. So we put a QA team together, and then we also have to tell what kind of testing we can do. All right. And this is very important because the client, right? The client had this idea that we're going to do all the type of testing, right? So that, yeah, this open source is going to save the day, all right? And I'm like, no, time out here, right? We still need unit testing, all right? And not only that, if we want to be true CI, we cannot have end-to-end tests, right? Think about it. Developer checking code, it builds. If my automated script takes 3 hours to run, would it be effective? No, right? Because the next person already checked in some code. Make sense? So we basically said we're going to automate for you, but more on the functional level, not in the integration or system level for the smoke tests. Now, and I'm going to show you later on, we have different jobs within Jenkins. So we just don't have one job. We actually have 3 jobs. Okay? And when we get to the job where we need to run full regression, that does not depending on the CI portion of it, we do run more integration. So we develop our script to be flexible enough to do functional automation and what we call integration or system level automation. Does that make sense? All right. So we did that. We want to know what test environment we need to run in, and that's very important. And they actually want us to run in 2 environments. They want us to run in QA and integration environment. Okay? And why do we need to know this? We need to set up configuration to point to the right place. We have 2 separate data files because their environment data strategy wasn't the same. So QA have a different set of data than integration data. All right? So we have to make sure we find the right data. All right? Level of testing, test data strategy, we talked a little bit about that, right? The only way we were able to get the automation to run really smoothly was we did a lot of data mining using automation. So we run a lot of back-end queries to find data. So in the insurance world, the system we automate was a claim system. You can't do a claim if you don't have a policy, right? And not only that, your policy has to be active, right? And not only that, you have certain level on the policy, right? Did you buy the $100 deductible or did you buy the $1,000 deductible, right? So instead of saying hard code policy number A, right, which means QA environment and integration environment won't have the same policy, we actually write queries. We run, and trust me, some of those queries, I couldn't write it. I actually had someone who was really good, okay? Because they had an outer join, inner join, and a whatever join you want to put in, okay? So, because again, you know, it's not as simple as one table, right? It's pretty crazy stuff. And then we also want to know what level of testing they want. And luckily, most of the testing they want to do were more UI based. All right? So in automation, you can do a lot, right? You can just say, hey, does the message show up on the UI? Or you can say, hey, did the record actually save to the database? Okay? So we asked them exactly what kind of automation. And they say, for the most part, we're not too concerned about verifying the data got to the database. But from a UI perspective, if I put in a claim, right, after the claim, I can come back in and I can pull up the claim again. Then my assumption is saved to the database correctly. Very bad assumption, just to let you guys know, okay? Because some system cache the data and not actually save it into a database, okay? So whatever you pull up, it's just locally stored data, or even the server caching, okay? And they do like every 3 minutes a mass commit or something like that, right? So you gotta be careful with some of that stuff. Application technology, luckily enough, it was a web application, right? And it didn't have anything funky in it, okay? What I mean by funky is if you have a web application and there's a lot of third-party integration, like grids and stuff like, you know how you go to some website and you're like, oh, I can scroll to a table inside there. That's not fun, just to let you know that. That's a grid, okay? And when automation look at it, it see one big blob. It doesn't see the row or the column, right? Now you have to build your own algorithm to figure it out, okay? Defect tracking. Now, why do you think we need to know about defect tracking? I mean, we're doing automation. Who cares about defect tracking? Why do we want to know a little bit about defect tracking?
When the tests fail.
Okay? So, good, right? A couple of things we need to know about defect tracking is, do they want us to automatically report defects? Okay, now I don't recommend this, okay? But some company actually say if the automation failed, automatically report a defect in Jira, okay? Then the analysis starts and say script error, right? Defect, right? Data problems, environment down, okay? So they can actually track every aspect of failure. Now, if you have automation that is very mature, okay? If you just start out your automation and you're not really mature, you're gonna get tons of defect and people start looking at it, okay? So it's up to the maturity of that organization. So I have want to look into that. And then finally, QA skill set, okay? Now, why do I say QA skill? Why did I look at QA skill set before building this thing?
Whether they can support it?
Thank you. Can they support it, right? I have another story for you. Okay. Oh my God, I'm a little bit behind here. Too many stories. All right, I skipped that story then. But anyway, short version of it is this guy built an awesome automation framework. Too awesome. When he left the company, no one can support it. It went dead. All right, and I had to go in and redesign it. Okay, it was too small. All right. So here's kind of the plan here is we're gonna execute our test from Jenkins. We have test script from TestNG to drive the test execution or the test management. We use a page object model, okay, with Sprint framework. Now this is really cool. Have you guys ever worked with Sprint framework? Sprint framework is really cool. Sprint framework allows you to dynamically call different things based on some criteria, okay? And the reason we need that is, remember I told you some mobile page is not the same as the desktop page? Right? So we had to put in some Sprint framework there to dynamically pick the right page to run against. Okay? So we use Sprint framework for that. And of course, reporting with ReportNG. And we ran it on mobile device, desktop, and Perfecto devices. Okay? So it's pretty cool. And when we run from Jenkins, what it will do is we actually run from Selenium Grid. You guys have used Selenium Grid before? Selenium Grid allows you to set up almost a network, okay? So you will turn one VM or PC, physical PC, doesn't matter, into what we call the hub. So think of a bicycle wheel, right? You have the hub in the middle, okay? And then you have all the node, which is the spoke that comes out of it, all right? When we run from Selenium Grid, we say, Selenium Grid, tell me if there's a node that have this thing that match the criteria I need. So for example, if I say, I want a Firefox, okay, 39, it will go and look at all my nodes and see which one have that requirement, and it's not busy. And it automatically sent the test to that and run it from there. Very cool, okay? So it basically allows you to basically create your own execution network, Selenium Grid, okay? We have to do that, and again, the reason we have to do that is because we have quite a bit of tests that we want to get through quickly. And when you're working with CI/CD, you almost have to set up a grid version because you want your, here's a little best rule of thumb. Your smoke test should take no longer than 10 minutes to run. Doesn't matter how many smoke tests you have. Should be less than 10 minutes. More than 10 minutes, you have slowed down the CI process. Does that make sense? Okay? So I don't care if your tests, how many tests you have. If you have, let's say, 30 smoke tests, okay? If you run it single-threadedly, I almost guarantee you it's going to take you about 30 minutes or so, okay? But if you have multiple threading, you should be able to get that down to under 10 minutes. And that's what was our goal. All right, WebDriver, we talked about this a little bit already. All right, use Selenium WebDriver, interact with browser object, right? We use Jenkins, right? We manage the build process for automation run, okay? We have a couple ways of doing this. So for the smoke test, we integrate it with the current build process. So the way Jenkins works is this. When you check in your code, it will trigger. And it will trigger what we call a pre-build process. A pre-build process typically runs unit testing, typically, right? It might pull in some other component and stuff like that, but for the most part, it runs unit testing. And it does the build, okay? Once it does the build, the next thing it does, it's build the code, and if everything is still work, you can run what we call post-build activities. We had to set up a few post-build activities. One was to actually get the WAR file that got generated by the build, all right, and create a script to move it to the web server, shut down the service, right, override the old WAR file, restart the service, okay, and what we do is after we restart the service, we have a script that just goes there and make sure it brings up and you don't get a 404. All right? Once we call that first post build successful. Then the second post build is to kick off the mobile automation. Okay? And we run through the mobile automation. If that is successful, right, and we integrate it with the build process, then we say that build is good. If any things along that line fail, we say the build is bad, right? Then we're going to figure out why it's bad. Make sense? So that was the first one. The next one we have what we call scheduled automation run. So we basically have three jobs. We have one that we piggyback off development, right? We have the second job where we schedule it. So even though there's no changes, I run what we call a miniature regression. Okay? And we trigger it typically at the end of the day. And all this thing is run it, see if anything changed, because you can never tell, right? It might be an infrastructure. This is where the DevOps comes in place, right? It might be an infrastructure change that we don't know about that fell. So we are helping the operational by doing a scheduled miniature regression run. And then the third job we set up was what we call full regression. This is where, you know how, code get built, right? We will run it on demand. So let's say that everybody say, well, sprint is over. We're not ready to release code yet. The sprint is over. We would actually go out there and kick off the full regression job, right? Let it run for 6 hours, okay? Because this is the end-to-end part of it, okay? And make sure everything works. Does that make sense? So we have 3 jobs, not 1 job. So it's very important that you have that level of security. Remember, if you build your automation right, maintenance should be very low when you kick off those jobs, right? You shouldn't be babysitting any of those stuff. All right. We integrated, okay? TestNG, we use it to manage workflow. All right. We use a page object model. Really complicated name for basically every page is a class. Inside every action you can do is a method. That's all it is. Easiest thing you can think of, right? Now, sometimes the page gets so crazy, right? I might break it down to, sub-pages, so-called. But for the most part, most website, you will have login page, right? Inside login page, what can I do? Type in username, type in password, click OK, right? Those are all methods, okay? And I'm calling those, right? The reason I want to do that is if there's a page that gets changed, I only have to change the page and not every script. Does that make sense? All right. Sprint framework. This is kind of describing you this Sprint framework right here. All right. The Sprint framework ability to correct the version of the page for each run. It dynamically select. So if I go out there and I have a config file and I say run mobile, it will see, ooh, it's mobile, so I got to load those pages. Make sense? Oh, I'm running desktop. Oh, I'm going to load those pages. The Sprint framework allows you to do that. All right. ReportNG, report out the information you want. All right. Perfecto Mobile, again, cloud-based, allow you to access. And we use this is because, first of all, here's the fun part, okay? If you don't use a cloud-based solution for a mobile device, it's really hard. Now, for browser, you can run concurrently to the day, right? Mobile device, each mobile device is, okay, single-threaded, okay? And each PC can only control one mobile device. So if I want to run multi-device, I'm going to have to set up a lot of PC, okay? Perfecto Mobile, so you know how I talked about Selenium Grid, right? Their cloud is the hub. Their device is the node, the spoke on the tire. Okay, so make it a little bit easier. All Here's an example of mobile cloud devices. Okay, and you can see those are real devices that's only on the cloud. So what is the project outcome? Okay, we built business flow test cases with about 40 steps each. Now this including the functional test and the integration test. Okay, just to kind of give you a feel, you know how some places they build automation tests that are like 800 steps? We don't like that. Okay. 20 of the test cases are used for smoke testing by pairing with Jenkins, right? Just as I tell you, 20 of them become smoke tests that run with the build, the development build. Okay. Test cases are divided into 3 priority: high, medium, low. Right? Project team and QA determine when to run the test. Okay. So we give them full access to schedule on demand. So we set all this up for them already, and we did a transition. And this is where the QA skill set is really important because again, you need to be able to see that. All right. Execution on Selenium Grid. Okay. So full execution always take around 2 days using Selenium Grid. All right. Now, why did it take 2 days? Okay. You're like, wait a minute, 2 days, David? That's a long time, right? The reason is they want to run across 26 devices. Each test case. Take 300 times by 26. Does that make sense? Right? I would not do that, to be honest with you. But remember, as a consultant, right? As a consultant, what do you always say? Anything you want, right? Okay? Oh, sorry. Oh, 16 browsers, sorry. Yeah. 8 desktop, 8 mobile devices. I thought 16. Sorry, not 26. Got the number wrong. 16. Right? 26, 16. All right? So you can see how manual testing will take 12 resources, 13 days. Okay? To go through the same suite of tests. Okay? Again, each test run on 8 desktop browsers. You can see all those browsers we have to run against desktop. And then also 8 mobile devices. So we ran 4,800 instances. Okay? And maintenance on the suite on average is less than 8 hours per execution, which is pretty amazing if you consider 4,800 test cases. I mean, not test cases, 4,800 instances of executions. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, it was really interesting. Now, you guys should ask me, how long does it take you to implement all this fun stuff? Right? We only had 5 months. Yeah. We only had 5 months to do all this stuff. Yeah. Most of my gray hair. All right. So now I'm going to demo kind of what we've done, but again, I can't do the full extent because again, it's a 5-month project, right? So I just want to show you really quickly of what we've done here. So let me switch over to this PC here. All right, that's quite all right. I knew this was gonna be interesting. So let me kind of explain to you. So instead of doing it at the insurance company, I decided to hit United.com because I fly a lot of United and I have a lot of grievances with them. All right. So I decided to automate them to totally throw off the analytic. Somebody loved to fly from Minnesota to Los Angeles for some reason. All right. Again, just to let you know, when you run automation against a live site, you know they're getting all your IP address and all that fun stuff. So they think somebody's good. But so I set up a page object model, and those are the pages that you can see up here, right? And I set up all the browsers, so I can actually run in Chrome on the new Firefox Gecko driver, okay? And basically, I have only one test that basically go out and search for a flight. Now, the cool thing about this is the setup itself. The setup itself will basically tell what capability to load, right? So what capability to load is how you determine if you're running on mobile versus website, right? If you declare your driver as a Gecko driver, then you know you're running a browser. If I declare my browser as Perfecto, I'm running on Perfecto. Does that make sense? Okay? The other thing that's really important, excuse me, is this little thing called TestNG here. This TestNG, we will pass a parameter if we want to run against an OS browser, which is mobile, or a Chrome browser, or any browser we want in here. And what this thing does is pass that parameter into my code, into my setup. My setup will load the right capability based on whatever I'm passing in. Does that kind of make sense? All right? So it's actually not that hard. All right? It's just that you have to set it up correctly so that you know what I mean? And because it's responsive design, my page, for the most part, is the same. There's a few pages that are different that you have to use Sprint framework to flip, so-called, right? But for the most part, because it's responsive, it's pretty much the same. All right? So again, I mean, if you want to talk to me more about this, I can show you more. But once you have that, right, I can run this as a TestNG suite, and you should see that it's running on. Now you're going to have a failure on the mobile side because someone is using my device here. But if I would go to, you can see how it's driving the browser. Okay. Come on, don't be slow. Of course, when I run it, okay. So if you've worked with automation a lot, you know that one of the failures is what we call synchronization. The script's running way faster than your application can react, right? So you're gonna have to play around with that a little bit. So you can see my browser test passed, but my mobile test failed, and the reason my mobile test failed is, of course, my device is still being taken up by this person right here. So luckily enough, I recorded it, or not recorded it. I have one that I ran, okay? Nope. So right here is one of them that I ran on the 16th, and what you can see is I basically run it against this device here, and you can see that I'm running the same code, the exact same code. It's just that it's on a mobile, on a Samsung Note 5 device. Okay? So now I'm able to create one script to run on both mobile and desktop, which saved me a lot of time, right? But it was a pain to set up a little bit. You can see how, well, you can't see it too well, but you can see how it's actually putting in the same information that I have put in. Does that kind of make sense? Yes? All right. You can see how I'm searching through everything. All right. And this is really cool too because we save it as a video. Guess what? If anyone come to you and say, show me why it didn't work, I can play back the video, right? Instead of saying, well, if you just go here, click on here, I can't reproduce it. I can say, look at the video. Okay? Any questions? Any questions? And again, if you want, you know, any question first?
Is this just a quick one? If it's not web-based and it's a native app, is there a recommendation?
Absolutely. You can use Appium.
Yeah,
so Appium support.
Okay.
So sorry.
Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah.
Appium support. Ready for this? Support mobile web. Okay, we call it mobile web, native app, and somewhat hybrid app. You know what a hybrid app is? A hybrid app is basically a native, but inside the content is all web. So companies say, I have a website already, right? But I want an app, because every company say, I have an app for that, right? So you know, the CIO will come and say, create an app to a development manager. The development manager will say, give me 3 months, right? They say, no, I want an app tomorrow, right? There's a company out there that say, we can give it to you in a week. All we do is create an app and put all your web content inside it. We call that a hybrid app, okay? Hybrid app, you know what the bad thing about a hybrid app is? It doesn't use a lot. Oh, go to my other session. I will tell you why a hybrid app. I will tell you why a hybrid app is not so cool. All right. Thank you, guys. I want to make sure you guys have a break before you jump onto the next session. But if you have questions or something like that, you want to follow up with me. Again, after the next session, we have 15 minutes, and then the next session, and then we have a few, and then the panel discussion, and then after that, I'm gonna stick around for a while, so if you guys say, hey, David, you know, I'm facing this, or, you know, Jenkins, I wanna do this, is it be able to do that? Again, I might not know it, but I have an opinion on it. All right, thank you, guys.